The docking bay hissed with the release of compressed gas as the ramp descended. Cold light spilled across the polished floor of the Galactic Imperial Forward Base Threxus 9, casting sharp reflections on the armor station guards. Dozens of alien officers stood in silent formation. Curious eyes and twitching antennae turned toward a lone figure emerging from the shuttle. He stepped out slowly, encased in matte black armor with no insignia, no color, no decoration. His helmet covered his face entirely, its visor unreadable. A long rifle rested on his back, and twin sidearms hung low on each thigh. He moved with no ceremony, no flourish, as if his arrival was just another part of a routine he had long ceased to question. General Kasharn of the Valari watched with narrowed pupils from the observation deck above. "This is humanity's offering," he murmured, voice curling with disdain. His aide, a spherical AI drone named Vox, hovered beside him. Affirmative. Designation, Reaper. No given name disclosed. Record highly redacted. Military performance statistics anomalous. Kasharn snorted. "I requested a soldier, not a specter. Do the humans think this is a game?" Down below, Reaper stopped in front of the assembled officers. No salute, no words, just silence, heavy as a gravity plating beneath their feet. Commander HFY, a sharp-eyed Rithri with translucent skin and a braided command sash, stepped forward and cleared her throat. "You are assigned to Unit D9. Report to Barracks 12 for integration. Any questions?" Reaper tilted his head slightly, a gesture that could have meant anything. Then he walked past her without a word. The murmurs began the moment his footsteps faded. Primitive. Arrogant. Silent freak. But one voice, low and uncertain, said, "Or maybe he just doesn't need to talk." Barracks 12 was a blend of chaos and quiet. Aliens of various races shared the space. Towering Kraxri with chitinous limbs, sleek Sarans with photonic skin, and the dual-headed Zanari twins who never stopped arguing with themselves. All froze when Reaper entered. He chose the bunk closest to the far wall and sat. Not a glance to anyone. Not a word. Over the next few days, Reaper became a presence more than a person. In training simulations, he operated with mechanical efficiency. He cleared target arrays before others finished booting up. In hand-to-hand sparring, no opponent landed a hit. Some called it luck. Others began to wonder. Lieutenant Herrix, a three-eyed Avenari known for his sharp tongue, decided to test a human's limits. During a downtime drill, he stepped into Reaper's path. "Hey, Terran, you got ears under that bucket or just sensors?" No response. "You think you're too good to talk to us? Too good to bleed like the rest of us?" The barracks quieted. Reaper stopped. Slowly, he turned his head. Herrix's bravado faltered under that unreadable visor. Then, quietly, finally, the human spoke. "I just don't waste breath." His voice was cold and smooth. Not aggressive. Not angry. Just final. Herrix stepped aside. Instructors began to notice. Reaper didn't react to insults, praise, or provocation. He completed each task as though he'd already done it 1,000 times before. When he was placed in the live-fire zone for evaluation, his speed and precision stunned even the auto-monitors. He disabled enemy drones, reprogrammed a hostile turret mid-combat, and neutralized a simulated hostage scenario in 42 seconds. Alone. Afterward, Instructor Malvek, himself a decorated war veteran of the Cygnus campaign, filed a quiet report to command. Subject Reaper appears to possess not just tactical superiority, but an uncanny sense of situational control. I hesitate to describe it as precognition, but there is something unnatural about his composure under fire. Recommend full psyche eval and historical record review, but that record remained locked behind Earth's military encryption layers. Even Imperial Command could not access more than surface-level details. Reaper had fought in 27 conflicts on his homeworld, earned 16 commendations, and was medically revived 5 times. When questioned about his service, he simply said, "I survived what others didn't." His squad began to shift around him. Some avoided eye contact. Others watched him with a blend of curiosity and fear. HFY, to her credit, kept her observations to herself. She'd seen monsters and martyrs with the same blank expression. One evening, in the dim lights of the barracks, Reaper sat alone, polishing the blade hidden inside his boot. Syiloka approached cautiously. "You're not here to make friends, are you?" He didn't look up. "No." "Then why are you here?" He paused. For a moment, she thought he wouldn't answer. "They wanted a weapon." "I am that." "Is that all you are?" His fingers stopped moving. "I used to think so." She didn't press further. There was something in his voice, almost a flicker of humanity. Almost. The next day, the mission board lit up. Outer Rim. Pirate activity. Minor engagement. A standard deployment for a trial squad. Reaper's name was on the roster. As the team assembled, prepping gear and syncing maps, he stood silent once again. No questions. No concerns. Kasharn watched from the command center as the shuttle lifted off. He frowned. "Let's see if the human is anything more than an overhyped brute." Vox's voice buzzed beside him. Caution advised. Probability models predict unexpected outcomes when integrating Reaper into active field scenarios. Kasharn waved the AI away. Down in the shuttle, as the stars streaked past the viewport and weapon systems warmed, Reaper finally spoke to the team. "Don't get in my way." No threats. No arrogance. Just fact. They didn't understand what he meant. Yet. But soon they would. And the galaxy would never forget. The shuttle touched down on the scorched rock of Virex 7, a border world barely holding on to its place in the Empire's grasp. Once a mining colony, it had since evolved into a no-man's land of rebel holdouts, mercenary clans, and ancient, rusting war machines scavenged for parts. Dust devils curled through the air like whispering ghosts as Reaper stepped onto the hardened earth, his squad fanning out around him. Sergeant Troll, a lean, blue-scaled Chitauri with a cybernetic eye, took point. He tapped his wrist pad, bringing up the mission layout. 4 hostile confirmed in Sector Gamma. Light resistance expected. Move quiet, move fast. The squad nodded in unison. Reaper didn't. Troll glanced over. "You understand the plan, human?" Reaper responded without turning. "I move. You survive." There was an awkward silence, then a bark of laughter from the rear. Private Yuvo, a rookie Saran barely out of cadet training. "Confident for someone who's never bled in our wars," he muttered. Reaper didn't acknowledge the comment. They advanced into the canyon, where jagged cliffs loomed overhead like teeth. The air smelled of rust, plasma discharge, and old death. Motion sensors flickered on and off, either from jamming tech or interference from decaying infrastructure. Troll ordered a standard sweep formation. Reaper ignored it, veering left through a narrow crevice between rocks. "Where the hell's he going?" muttered Syiloka, watching from the rear line, her rifle half raised. Before Troll could respond, the sky exploded. A shriek of incoming artillery rocked the ground. Dust erupted. Screams followed. They were caught, ambushed by a larger force than predicted. Plasma bolts tore into the ridge, scattering the squad. Yuvo went down hard, his leg vaporized in the opening volley. The comms lit up with overlapping panic. Contacts on all sides. "Need cover fire." "I can't see." Someone jammed optics. In the chaos, no one noticed Reaper wasn't among them, until the gunfire shifted. Suddenly, the enemy lines faltered. Screams, this time from the rebels, cut through the static. Then silence. One by one, the squad crawled out of the craters, bleeding and shaken. Troll coughed, his armor scorched black. "Report. Sound off." Yuvo groaned beside him, half conscious. Syiloka limped toward the ridge, weapon ready. Then they saw him. Reaper walked out from the far end of the canyon alone. Blood dripped from his gauntlet. A gash across his chest plate steamed, but he moved without a limp. Behind him, in the distance, lay the wreckage of a rebel machine nest, burned-out hoverbikes, shattered exosuits and bodies. Lots of them. He approached without speaking, knelt beside Yuvo, and injected a stabilizer into the young soldier's neck. "You're not dead," he said quietly. "Don't waste it." No one knew what to say. Back at the mobile command shelter, Commander Syiloka reviewed the drone footage in silence. Reaper had vanished from the main squad during the ambush, circled wide, and infiltrated the enemy flank with surgical precision. He'd eliminated 19 hostiles in under 7 minutes using only a blade and suppressed sidearm. No backup, no cover, no hesitation. She replayed the footage again, not because she didn't believe it, but because she didn't want to. The others were less subtle. Troll cornered her in the corridor hours later. He's not normal. I saw him take a direct shot from AK-74 repeater that should have torn through his chest. It burned through his armor, she replied, but not him. He didn't flinch, didn't scream, just kept moving, like he wasn't alive to begin with. HFY stared at the wall a long moment. You think he's synthetic? I don't know. I think he's wrong. She didn't argue, because privately, she wasn't sure either. When the squad returned to Threxus 9 for debrief, the medbay registered abnormally low vitals from Reaper scan, lower than any standard human. The attending medic, a Jelnari with 14 years of xenomedical experience, tried running diagnostics 3 times. Each time, the system stalled. His blood's reacting to the med scanner like it's encrypted, the medic muttered. How do you encrypt blood? High Command requested the full mission playback. 2 analysts reviewed it. One called it tactically brilliant. The other whispered, he's a ghost in armor. Word began to spread. The human had killed more enemies in one operation than most squads did in a rotation. Not with artillery, not with drones, with his hands. He slept in silence, ate alone, trained alone. His quarters remained bare, no personal effects, no photos, not even a nameplate. When asked if he wanted to customize his armor, he replied, "It works." In the cafeteria, soldiers whispered in hushed tones. Stories evolved. Some said he was exiled from Earth for killing his own commanding officer. Others claimed he'd survived a bioweapon attack that melted a battalion. A few believed he wasn't even human anymore. HFY heard them all, but said nothing. She reviewed her own field report 3 times before submitting it. Operative Reaper displayed exceptional skill in hostile territory. Elimination of enemy personnel was performed with precision and control. Recommend continued deployment. However, advise psychological profiling and enhanced monitoring. Subject demonstrates behavior consistent with long-term exposure to extreme combat. Potential risk, desensitization. 3 days passed before the next assignment was posted. A new strike was scheduled. Minor objective, low resistance expected. Reaper's name wasn't listed. Instead, he was summoned to the command hall. Alone, Kasharn, flanked by 2 Valari guards and the AI Vox, stood before the towering map display. We have reviewed your operation footage. Your kill count exceeded projections by a wide margin. Reaper said nothing. The general studied him. You violated formation protocol, abandoned your squad, used unsanctioned tactics. Still nothing. Then Kasharn leaned in slightly. And yet you won. Reaper's visor glinted under the cold light. You brought me to kill, he said. So I did. Kasharn exhaled through his nose slits. Next time, follow orders. I follow results. As he turned to leave, Kasharn asked, Is that what you did on Earth too? Just followed results. There was a pause, long, heavy. Then Reaper replied, without looking back, You wouldn't want to know. And then he was gone, leaving only silence and questions that no one dared answer. The stars above Zaretha's hollow were choked by ion storms, turning the sky into a writhing violet sea. The Imperial transport hovered over the drop zone, battered by turbulence, its hull groaning like an old beast forced into one more hunt. Inside, Unit D9 stood in grim silence, eyes on a human who sat with his back to the bulkhead, sharpening his blade with steady, rhythmic strokes. HFY tightened the strap on her chest harness, then glanced across the cabin. You've read the intel, she said, her voice pitched low. These aren't pirates. There's something else. Reaper didn't respond. Troll chimed in from the side. We're not cleared for full details. Just a retrieval. A listening post went dark 2 days ago. No distress call. No damage logs. Just silence. Yuvo shifted uncomfortably, his new cybernetic leg humming with each movement. You ever wonder what scares people into going quiet without a fight? The question hung there like a weight. The green light blinked over the exit ramp. The dropship opened its mouth to the storm below, howling wind rushing inside. The squad jumped. Zaratha's Hollow was a ruined world of black rock and dying structures. The old Imperial listening post rose like a shattered ribcage, its towers cracked and leaning, antennas torn down as if clawed by some unseen predator. Lightning cracked in the distance. The air stank of ionized ozone and ash. They moved in formation, weapons ready. Reaper led without needing to be told, scanning every angle with a cold, methodical calm. When they reached the main entrance, Trawl tapped his comm. Central node breached, requesting interior light feed. Nothing. Inside, the halls were empty. No blood, no bodies, just signs of struggle. Overturned chairs, shattered terminals, long drag marks streaked across the floors. HFY crouched beside one. These tracks, someone was pulled, not carried. Trawl checked the scanner. No biosigns, no tech signals, not even heat signatures. They pressed deeper into the facility. Then the lights flickered, just once. A high-pitched whine buzzed through the corridor, and then the doors sealed behind them. Yuvo spun. That wasn't me. I didn't touch anything. Stay calm, HFY ordered, raising her weapon. Emergency lockdown, maybe, or someone triggered it. That's when the whispering began. At first, it was dismissed as static, ghost noise from fried comms. But then the words took shape. They weren't in any known language. A chattering, skittering chant that crawled into their ears and made something ancient stir in the back of their minds. Trawl snarled, slapping his helmet. Make it stop, damn it. Yuvo dropped to one knee, clutching his head. They're inside my thoughts. HFY barely managed to stay focused. She turned to Reaper, only to find him utterly still. His head cocked slightly as if listening, but not in fear, in recognition. You've heard this before, she said hoarsely. Reaper's voice was low. They used it on Earth. Once, in the Deep War. What is it? Psychogenic interference. Not tech, not magic, just engineered hate. The corridor ahead groaned, and a shape emerged. It wasn't a soldier. It wasn't even a being. It was a mass of dark metal and sinew, fused together with twitching organic matter. Dozens of eyes blinked erratically across its surface. Limbs jutted at impossible angles. From its torso hung the partial armor of an Imperial scout, his face still attached, wide-eyed and screaming. Trawl fired first, a bolt of plasma lancing toward the thing's center mass. It absorbed the shot and kept moving. The squad scattered as it lunged. Chaos exploded through the corridor. The creature screamed, a howl that split the comms and shattered nearby panels. Yuvo went down under a swinging limb, his arm crushed before anyone could react. HFY tried to flank it, her rifle stuttering with rapid bursts. Nothing slowed it, and then Reaper moved. He launched forward, faster than seemed possible, slamming into the creature with a force that cracked bone and metal alike. His blade carved the tendons beneath its arm, severing one limb entirely. The beast shrieked, flailing, but Reaper was already behind it, placing charges with surgeon's precision. He dove back as they detonated. The creature buckled, stumbling, but not dead. Reaper landed beside Trawl, catching the rifle that had been knocked from the sergeant's hand. This doesn't die easy, Trawl grunted. Reaper's voice was calm. It doesn't die scared either. Then he raised a rifle and fired directly into its shrieking mouth. The plasma ignited something volatile inside. It burst. Ash and shrapnel rained down the corridor. HFY pulled Yuvo's barely conscious form to safety. Smoke swirled. Reaper stood in the center, his armor scorched, visor cracked, chest heaving. No one spoke for several seconds. Finally, HFY rasped, "That wasn't part of the mission." Reaper looked at the remnants of the beast. "No, that was a message." Trawl shook his head slowly. "You said they used this on Earth. Who used it?" Reaper turned toward him. "They weren't human, but they didn't come from space." He knelt by the shredded corpse of the creature and pried open the armored section of its spine. Inside, instead of nerves or bone, there was a small data core, pulsing, alive. He crushed it without a word. "What was that?" Sylok asked. "Proof," he replied. Troll stepped closer. "Of what?" "That something old is waking up," Reaper said quietly, "and it remembers us." Sylok looked around at her battered team. Yuval moaned softly, his chest rising and falling. The air smelled of fire and rot. They'd come for a listening post. Instead, they'd found a warning, and the war they thought they knew had just changed its face. The tribunal chamber aboard the Imperial Dreadnought Vigilant Resolve loomed like a cathedral carved from shadow and steel. Pale plasma torches flickered along the obsidian walls, casting long, skeletal shadows over the gathered officers and high-ranking observers. Silence reigned, heavy and expectant, as a human known only as Reaper stood at the center of the chamber, unarmed, unarmored, yet somehow more dangerous in this stillness than any soldier in full combat rig. No chains bound him, though many in the chamber silently wished they did. High Commander Kasharn, his aged carapace etched with 1,000 command medals, gazed down from the elevated platform. His breath rasped through his rebreather, each inhale mechanical and slow. At his right, the AI Delegate Vox shimmered in a pillar of hard light projection, its shifting face composed of fractal symbols and coded runes. Admiral Drixos flanked Kasharn's left, his gold-plated pauldrons bristling with indignation. "This is not an interrogation," Kasharn began, though the tension in the air suggested otherwise. "This is a reckoning." Reaper remained still, arms at his sides, eyes forward. "You are being evaluated," Kasharn continued, "for your conduct, for your nature, and for the risk your continued service poses to the Galactic Empire." Admiral Drixos took a step forward, his voice sharp. 3 missions, 70 confirmed kills. Half of them executed in melee combat. The other half under conditions that should have meant death for everyone involved, including you. He flicked a hand toward the hollow display, now spinning above the tribunal floor. It showed recordings from Zaratha's hollow, shaky footage captured by squad cams, images of the grotesque creature, the way Reaper moved through the chaos like a phantom of vengeance. The silence afterward. "Explain yourself," Drixos barked. "Was the annihilation of the listening post necessary?" "No," Reaper answered, his voice low and firm. "But the alternative was worse. And that alternative was—" Kasharn prompted. "A repeat of what happened on Earth." The murmurs grew. Earth, always whispered with unease, as if uttering the name might awaken its ghosts. Reaper let the silence settle, not out of defiance, but patience. He knew what they were waiting for, something they could quantify. Control. "During the Deep War," he began, "we encountered a bioform that did not originate from any known species. It mimicked sentient life, assimilated it, wore like armor. Our weapons slowed it, but never stopped it. Our minds broke long before our bodies did." Drixos scoffed. "And we are to believe it's returned? That this myth has followed you into our territory?" "It didn't follow me," Reaper said, eyes narrowing. "It found new prey." Vox's voice hummed into silence. "You terminated the entity at Zaratha's hollow with a non-standard combination of precision strikes, high-velocity charges, and neurodisruption pulses. Without support or permission, your coordination defied tactical logic. I've done it before." "That is the point of concern," Vox continued. "According to your biometric data, you experience no adrenaline spikes during combat. Your vitals remain unnaturally consistent. Human soldiers react to war. You respond like a system. That's what war made me." A pause. Kasharn studied him with a new weight behind his eyes. "Do you believe you're still human?" Reaper blinked once. "What I believe doesn't change the threat we face." From the rear gallery, a voice cut through the quiet. "He saved us." Sylok stepped forward, shoulder bandaged, face pale but defiant. The council turned to her in mild surprise. She wasn't called to testify, yet she stepped into the light willingly. "I watched that thing tear through armor like paper," she said. "I watched Yuval scream while his bones snapped in its grip. I shot it with everything I had, and it didn't blink, but Reaper didn't run. He fought with precision, not fury, and because of him, we're standing here today. Kasharn gestured. You believe this threat is real, Lieutenant? I know it is. Drixos looked away in disgust. So we'll take the word of a human butcher and a compromised squad lead? Our enemies multiply, and now we're debating fairy tales. Reaper looked directly at him. You're not debating fairy tales. You're ignoring warnings. Kasharn leaned back slowly. What would you have us do? There's a planet on the outer fringe. You've already lost a patrol ship there. It's not a coincidence. The air in the chamber tightened. How do you know that? Vox asked. I accessed the encrypted logs before the core was destroyed. The biosignal had already migrated. It's nesting there. And your proposal? Kasharn asked. Send me. Alone. Drixos laughed, a cold bark of disbelief. Reaper's voice turned colder. I don't need help. I need permission. Vox processed rapidly. Probability models suggest any force we send will be compromised within hours. A solo deployment has a higher chance of infiltration and internal detonation protocols. Kasharn considered for a long moment. You'll have one ship, one insertion. If you return with proof. If not, we seal the system. I don't plan on returning, Reaper said. As he turned to leave, HFY stepped into his path. Why you? She asked softly. Why take this alone? Reaper looked at her, truly looked, and the weight behind his expression was unbearable. Because I'm already what they're trying to become. And if I fail, I'd rather die with them than bring that infection back to this galaxy. Then he walked out, leaving silence and a trail of unanswered prayers behind him. Kasharn exhaled slowly. Prepare the ship, he said. And somewhere in the cold, dead dark beyond the stars, something ancient and hungry opened its eyes.